side of the stage. Those are for questions. If you have a question, please write it on an index card where those buckets are and drop it in the index card. If you're sitting close enough to Miss Sylvia, you can hand it to her as well too. But those questions will be asked by way of those index cards. We're going to go ahead and begin. Panelists, welcome. We appreciate you being here tonight for this extremely important conversation. And so here's what we want to do. If you will take a moment to just simply introduce yourselves. We'll start here to my direct left with Ms. Veronica, then we'll just move on down the line. If you just introduce yourself and your organization one more time, and then we're going to come back here, Ms. Veronica, and just open up with our presentation. So please introduce yourself. And you have to share that microphone. Just pick it up and pass it around if you will. And speak directly into it like you see me doing. Otherwise, it won't pick you up too well.
Good evening. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Veronica Bard with Court Watch NOLA.
How you doing? My name is Eric Brown with Diamonds Bills Bond, located in Shelbyville, Louisiana.
How you doing? My name is Sonny Strong, a.k.a. Derek Strong. I'm a formerly incarcerated individual in community organizing.
My name is Will Snowden with the Vera Institute of Justice, New Orleans office.
Very good. Thank you all again for being here tonight. We appreciate your time and what you have to share with us tonight. So can we begin with you, Ms. Veronica, and Court Watch NOLA, and can you just take about 8 minutes to just present to us anything pertinent that you think that we need to know tonight?
Yeah, so Court Watch NOLA, if you haven't heard of our organization, we try to be an objective agent collecting data in the criminal courts in Orleans Parish. We monitor municipal court, magistrate court, and criminal district court. We monitor all cases from first appearance in court to sentencing, except for juvenile and traffic cases. So what does it mean when you're carrying one of our yellow clipboards and have your yellow ID badge on you? That means you are making your public officials sit up straighter. We are covering about 65% of all cases in criminal court. Each observation lasts about 3 hours and 10 minutes, and that amounts to about 300 hours of observation per courtroom per year. So, bail bond issues that we've seen in each court. In magistrate court, I actually had given this presentation a couple of years ago with Justice and Beyond, so I apologize if I've already repeated this information, but I'm going to give you an example of an individual who's given a $10,000 bail, and he goes to a commercial bail bondsman, and whether or not he pleads or is found guilty, then that defendant is going to pay $1,244 to the bail bondsman as well as to various agents in the criminal court, including for his own defense if he needs a public defender. Now, how much does he pay if he's found not guilty or his case is later dismissed? He still pays $1,229. That means that $15 is refundable if he is found not guilty or his case is dismissed later on. So right now we're working with an alliance of many organizations in the city that are doing wonderful work around bail reform. And we have trained a special corps of court watchers through a wonderful organization called Operation Restoration, that are women who have been familiar with the criminal justice system, and they're collecting data for the whole alliance of magistrate court and the criminal district court. They're analyzing the compliance of the public officials in accordance with 2 federal lawsuits. One is against the city of New Orleans, and one is against Judge Harry Cantrell. One of the things that the Operation Restoration women made sure that we track in that court watching race, and not only race, but we are tracking a skin color scale. So we want to see any differential treatment of people based on the shade of their skin. Criminal District Court. So we are one of the few organizations that's trying to figure out why defendants might not want to come to jail. Might not want to come to court. Surprise, surprise, right? So one of the data points that we're currently tracking is drug tests. How many times is a defendant remanded back to jail because of a positive drug test once their court is already going through criminal district court? So by law, there are a certain number of charges that require that initial drug test. But why are judges continuing to test defendants? And I'll tell you that 36% of the cases that I reviewed, they were not even charged with drug charges. And yet they're still being held in jail for positive drug tests. The positive drug test might be triggered for something like possession of marijuana. And their average length of stay is 18 days in jail. We're also tracking why the amount of fines and fees total that defendants are paying in criminal district court for these types of what they call lab fees. So obviously every time that you go in to get a drug test, you have to pay to take that drug test. And I've even seen cases where there is actually a stipulation to their bail that they be drug tested Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of every week. Now tell me how you're going to go to jail, how you're going to go to your job, how you're going to take care of your kids, if you're in court every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to take a drug test. Now we're also looking at when there's an increase in bail, and this is a special circumstance. It's called a return on indictment. So there's 2 ways to charge a defendant. There's a bill of information, which is the majority of cases, and then there's a grand jury indictment that the district attorney can actually circumvent the jurisdiction of the magistrate court, take it out of magistrate court, and put it directly into criminal district court. So we're looking at about 157 cases where the magistrate court had already set a bail in some cases, or the DA just goes directly to the district court to set their first bail. So what's the problem here? I'll give you an example. A veteran shows up to court. He's abiding by all conditions of bail. He's coming to court when he's supposed to, and he's not even told when this grand jury indictment is handed down. He was absent for that return on indictment. His defense counsel was absent for that return on indictment. And there's little to no record of the actual return on indictment, yet he had a bail amount set that day. That veteran was put into cuffs in court, and then to get him to have a reduced bond, the defense counsel was required to file a written motion to set it for hearing. But the DA didn't have to do that. The DA didn't have to have a hearing with both counsel present. So what we see here is the defendant's absence is a due process violation. The defense counsel's absence is a Sixth Amendment violation. And I'll just throw in that we've been told by judges that they're caught off guard when they don't have the case filed in front of them. So they're relying on the district attorney to tell them, well, is this defendant out on valid bond? and the district attorney is not telling them that. So in some cases, the prosecutor has actually requested a warrant for that defendant's arrest, alleging that that defendant is at large, when in fact the defendant is out on valid bond. So to just throw some numbers out at you, in these situations, moving from magistrate court to criminal district court, and the only change of circumstance is that filing of a grand jury indictment, $952,368 average increase in bail. 42% of bails increased by an amount of $100,000 to $1 million. So the prosecutor's argument might be, okay, you know, the defendant might not be there, the defense counsel might not be there, and yet they'll have the opportunity to re-argue bail later. Well, the average decrease after that initial setting of bail amount after the return on indictment is $64,037, and yet 85% of the bails remained exactly the same. The highest bail amount that we saw was $12 million. And lastly, in municipal court is, NPR has called the gateway to the criminal justice system. They handle the largest volume of cases, defendants, victims. So we've heard from various bail funds where there are philanthropists who actually pay the bail amount for for defendants who are facing felony charges to post that bail amount. Yet that does not happen in municipal court. But I have sat in municipal court where I've heard a judge say, okay, well, I know that these bail funds exist, and so I'm going to require a secured bond, which means that the defendant needs to go to a commercial bail bondsman and can't post their own cash bond, and the judge doubled the bail amount. So the mere existence of knowing that these bail funds exist, the judge is intentionally setting that bail amount beyond the amount that a defendant can actually pay. And they're intentionally doing that. And lastly, there was a new municipal bail ordinance that was passed by City Council a couple of years ago. And we're one of the only organizations that are analyzing the compliance with that for each judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Veronica. And before you start, Eric, I did want to bring attention to the fact that we did invite Harry Cantrell to be here tonight. We did send him a formal invitation to join us tonight. He did not respond to that request and did not show up. We also invited Sheriff Gusman to be here tonight as well too. He said that he could not be here because he was out of town. However, he was in someone from his office with data. Is there anyone from Sheriff Gusman's office here tonight? All right, so that request was not honored either. And so when we invite folks and they don't show up, we just see that they don't want to be called to question on what's going on, and so we just want to bring attention to that. Eric, if you will, please.
How you doing? My name is Eric Brown with Diamonds Bail Fund, once again located in St. Bernard, Louisiana, Chalmette, Louisiana. I want to piggyback off of some things that she said. My job is basically to free any and everyone that I can, all right? I want to point that out. I don't go handpick and say, hey, I'm going to get her, I'm going to get him. If you call me, my job is to try to get you out. All right, now, I'm going to break down the circumstances and the situations of being a bondsman. Everybody feel on a $10,000 bond, we make $10,000. We don't. I'm going to break down the cost to you all. Orleans Parish, and every parish is different, but Orleans Parish charges you 13% to bond someone out of jail. Out of that 13%, Orleans Parish Prison gets 3%. Okay? Plus, on top of the 3%, we also have to pay what we call a rollout fee. After we pay the 3%, we still have to give them another $54 for the first charge, and $45 per additional charge to say release him. After you done made 3% of the total bond. So for $10,000, we done already paid you $300, then we have to come back and pay you approximately another $240 to another $300 more to release you. Okay? So that's 3% going out of 13%. 5% goes to the insurance company who gives us the amount of money to write a check to bond someone out. Okay? So out of that 13%, 8% is gone. If you don't own a bail company, if you're working for someone, you have to pay the company 2%, which means now you're at 10%. So the actual agent only makes $200 off a $10,000 bond. But watch this. I want y'all to pay close attention. When we go sign that check and say, hey, release that guy right there. I paid you all your fees. He's under my control. When we sign that check, we're basically telling Marlon Gusman and Orleans Parish Prison that we are being responsible for someone we don't know. So if this gentleman missed court, right, I have to pay bounty hunters 7% of the total bond, which cost me $700 to go find this gentleman. All right? Now, I only made $200, which means I'm in a whole $5 now. Because I have to come out of my pocket with an additional $500 to pay somebody to go find him because, one, he didn't go to court. All right? Now, him not going to court can be as simple as a traffic ticket. Real simple. Something that you're going to court for that you're not going to get time for. They're going to give you a fine, a penalty, and send you on your way. Okay, now, we go back to the bond amount, $10,000. I can't say all companies do the same as my company does. If you come to me and you say, hey, my son is in jail, his bond is $10,000. I offer a payment plan. You give me enough money to pay the jail and give me enough money to pay the insurance. The rest of the money, guess what? However you want to pay it, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Because I'm here to help. I'm not here to hurt nobody. But at the same time, I'm here to make money. All right? Now, mind you, what I said once again, I only made $200 on a $10,000 bond. Now, if you take bail reform and put it into place, what happens is this here. That $10,000 bond, either you go to Orleans Parish Prison and you pay $10,000 to the jail, or your son, your daughter, your husband, your niece, your nephew sits in there till they go to court. Everybody in New Orleans knows how the court system works. You go to court today, they push it back 2 months. You go to court 2 months, they push it back 2 more months. You go to court 2 months down the line from that, they push it back 3 months. Until they decide they want to do a settlement. 90% of the time, when they do that, they have nothing on that person. They're trying to get the person to get a plea deal, just so that they can say, we have a conviction. Amen. I come from a neighborhood, that's my auntie. We had to fight to walk to school. We had to fight in school. We had to fight to walk home from school. All right? I stayed on the corner. The drug dealers was on this corner. So my thing is, I got into it not to make the money. I got into it to help. But when you put me in a corner and saying, hey, I'm not going to do it, what do you want me to do? Now, I'm going to tell you how I work. That's my little cousin right there. All right? He was incarcerated. And I'm going to tell you, wrongly incarcerated. And I'm going to tell you why. I have another cousin who's actually in jail right now, owned a company. When you go to McDonald's and they hire you, you don't ask McDonald's for their license. You don't ask McDonald's for their background. You don't ask McDonald's for nothing but give me my shirt and let me go to work. And that's all he did. My cousin told him he had a contract with FEMA picking up trailers. He picked up trailers, go to cash the check, guess what happens? He's in the bank cashing the check. 6 cars surrounded him of police. But you know what they did? He's not built for jail. Who is? But they made him take a plea deal. When you should have arrested my older cousin. Because that's who the check was written from. He was just doing an honest thing. He picked up his trailers, he delivered his trailers. It was payday. Can I get my money? He got his check, went to the bank. He had to take a plea deal. Because guess what? If he wouldn't have took a plea deal, Orleans, he's going to sit a year or 2 years before he get a court date. Jefferson is the same way. All right? A lot of people ask me, well, Eric, why did you get an office in St. Bernard? And I'm going to tell you why. Excuse me. St. Bernard is fair with everything. The same office I have in St. Bernard that I pay $785 a month for, Orleans want almost $2,200 a month. I have to survive. I can't if I go pay $2,200 compared to $785. All right? Another thing. Orleans. I can go buy him out at 9 o'clock in the morning. But they won't release him till after 12:01. The next day. Why? Because they get paid. Again, 2 days. So I paid his bond at 9 o'clock. Now I'm going to show you the difference between Orleans and Jefferson, who I compare, are one, and Kenner, St. Bernard, and Plaquemines, because I do all the parishes throughout the state of Louisiana, including Baton Rouge. Orleans and Jefferson, I compare at 9 o'clock. They won't release my client to 12:01 because they want that extra day. St. Bernard, Kenner, Plaquemines, and Baton Rouge. As soon as I sign the check over and give it to the deputy, 30 minutes later, my client is walking out with me. All right? Another thing. My client missed court. I don't send a bounty hunters out to him right then and there. You know what I do? I call him. Hey, Mr. Doley, you missed court today. This is the steps you need to take to get a new court date. St. Bernard charges you $80 for a new court date. All right? So, if I ask him, if I tell him, hey, Mr. Doley, you missed court, it costs $80, go to St. Bernard, go to the DA's office, tell him you want to recall your warrant. To me, I'm being fair. I'm really being fair. Because guess what? When they send me the warrant, when that warrant come across my desk, I'm supposed to go get Mr. Doley. That's what they want me to do. But I have my own business. I run my own business. And I run it the way I want to run it. Because guess what? Just because he missed a court date, you never know what happened. He could have got into a car accident. Something could have happened to one of his parents. Something could have happened to his siblings. Something could have happened to his wife. So I'm understanding. You know what? I don't even much want to know what happened. Just go to the DA's office, pay them $80 to get your court date recovered. All right? So, as far as bail bonds, you do have 30 companies, but we're not one of them. We're not one of them. Like I said, I gave you 3 things. Payment plans that we offer according to your income. So if you're on disability, guess what? Pay me $50 a week. If you're on disability, you can pay once a month. Pay me $50 a month. You have a $1,000 balance. Pay me $50 a month till it's paid off. Because I don't want your loved ones in there. I don't want you in there. I don't want to be in there. I was actually one of the ones out in my community that can say, you know what, I made a change. You understand what I'm saying? So if I can make a change, guess what? I live by reach one, teach one.
Mr. Brown, let me ask you a question real quick.
Yes.
So, and we appreciate the fact that you said there are dirty bail bondsman companies out there, and you're not one of them. And we appreciate all that you're doing to live out that motto, each one, reach one. But what are some of the dirty ones doing that need to be reformed?
I'm going to tell you what's going on my end of the state. In Orleans, I've been in Orleans for about 3 years now. If I did a total of 5 bonds in Orleans, it's a lot. And I'm going to tell you what I've called dirty. You have bond companies that's in competition. So, me, by law, I have to take my insurance money and I have to take the jail money up front. Anything after that, I can put on a payment plan. But you have a bond company, I'm not going to call no names though. You have a couple of them, to be honest with you, that'll come in and say, you know what, just give me 3%. Now, if you my brother or you my family member, you call me and say, hey, Eric, I got a $10,000 bond. And I tell you, well, look, the cheapest I can do it is $700, right? But then you call this guy here, who's only going to take 3%, because he know he's not supposed to be taking it, but he want to take it anyway to get the business. What you going to do? You want to look at me as the bad guy. Well, hey, man, you supposed to be my family, and you overcharging me. This man charging me $300. But I'm going by the law. I don't want to lose my license. I have 8 kids to take care of. So if they ever come audit me, guess what? I can be proud and put my paperwork and spread it on the table and say, hey, here for everything. But the other ones, they can't do that. But that's the same ones who, listen to me and hear me out. It's the same ones who are running with your judges, who are running with your release people in the jailhouse. All right? I done been there. I done been to Orleans to where the window don't close till 11 o'clock to bind somebody out. And I done went at 10:45. You know what the lady told me? Oh, we closed. I got to count down. So guess what? You know what my client did? Broke down. So when they was about to take her to jail. But how can you take her to jail when you're supposed to close at 11? And it's 10:45 and you telling me you can't take nothing else? You understand what I'm saying? It's Orleans, and I'm going to be honest with you. Orleans is one of the worst ones to deal with. And I'm going to tell you this here, and I'm going to end it up. Orleans gave us the right to charge 13%. All right? They get 3%. So we will make $300 on a $10,000 bond. So, well, I want to say a month ago, right? We got an email. Now listen to me. Orleans sent us an email and said 13% across the board. But a month ago, they sent us an email saying it was against the law to charge 13%. So guess what? Some of your companies won't be around too much longer because now we have to go back from 2007 and pay Orleans Parish 1% of every bond we did. So guess what? If you did 1% of $100,000 and you don't have it in your account, they suspend your license. Which means what? You can't get your license back till you pay it. But y'all told us we could charge 13% and then come back and say, hey, that's against the law. So now we got to pay 1% of every bond that we did in Orleans back. Now, do the math. If I wrote $1 million worth of bonds in Orleans, 1%, do I have that in my account? No.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We're going to move on to, in just a moment, we're going to move to question and answer time at 6 o'clock, which is our normal time to move to question and answer time. There are both buckets on the right and left side of the stage in order for you to write your question down on an index card. That question will be asked. We're going to move to Mr. Snowden now with your presentation, and then we're going to move to Sonny for his personal experience after that. So, Mr. Snowden, please.
Thank you. Got 8 minutes. Let me take out my clock.
Reverend, please. Let the moderators handle this, please. Thank you, sir.
So thank you so much for having me here. And I'm going to start with the premise that I do not believe money bail keeps us safe, and I don't think you should either. When we talk about what bail really serves a function as, it will allow people to get out of jail before their case has been decided. And we call that period your pre-trial phase, right? We know that when somebody gets arrested in Orleans Parish, they're brought in front of a judge for what's called their first appearance, and essentially 3 things happen at that first appearance. The first, the judge is going to determine if there's probable cause for your arrest. Second, they're going to determine if you're eligible for a public defender. And then third, they will set a money bail amount for your case. And as Mr. Brown indicated, that there's a 3% fee that goes to all those actors in the room. And I'm going to break that number down a little bit more. So 1.8% actually is going to the judicial expense.
In the room, please, everybody, if I can have your attention up here, there's a lot of side conversation going on. It helps us if there was none of that going on, please.
So breaking down that 3% figure, 1.8% goes to the judicial expense fund, and then the remaining 1.2% is divided, I believe, amongst the three different actors of the sheriff, the DA, and the public defender. And so we just had lawsuits that were decided in August of 2018 that basically said the way Orleans Parish is assigning money bail is a financial conflict of interest, right? Because you have a judge that's sitting in a position determining what the size of the pie is going to be, knowing that they're going to get a slice of that pie. Right, so the federal judge, that's a financial conflict of interest. That is unconstitutional, and that is not how you should be running your money bail, your pretrial system in Orleans Parish to be in line with the Constitution. They also determined that the magistrate judge was not doing an adequate job in determining the person's ability to pay. So what we would see is, let's say somebody is charged with felon in possession of a firearm, and what we would be seeing is for almost every case, felon charged with possession of a firearm, a $10,000 round. Right? The bail amount is supposed to be individualized, supposed to take into consideration that person's ability to pay. If you don't have $1 in the bank account, a $10,000 bond might as well be $1 million bond. What's supposed to be happening is to take into consideration that person's ability to pay and tailor that amount for that individual person to be able to pay it. When we look historically at what bail was supposed to be, bail means is right to release. Right? And over the years, we have associated bail with an actual amount that people have to pay a percentage of to get out and fight their case from the street. What we have, as Mr. Brown indicated, a $10,000 bond. The family pays 12%. Then the bonding company is able to go sign a promissory note, and that person is able to get released. And as he indicated, in Orleans Parish, it's often not until the next day, so they can tabulate that stay in their jail. That person goes to court. They're found not guilty, that percentage doesn't get returned. If they're found guilty, that percentage doesn't get returned. The case is dismissed, that percentage does not get returned. When we look at what we have today compared to what we used to have, putting up some money used to be an incentive to go to court. Right? Because if I got arrested and my parents had to put up $1,000, I wanted to keep going to court to make sure my parents could get that $1,000 back. But now, since it has been commercialized, and we have the ability to use bail bondsmen, that incentive of me going to court to make sure my parents get the money back has completely been lost when we have to utilize commercial bail bondsmen. So when we think about what keeps us safe, and the reason why I led with the premise that I'm not convinced that money bail keeps us safe is because the way that we're using money bail in Orleans Parish, we're not doing a good job assessing, and I'm putting in air quotes, risk and dangerousness. I don't know how we categorize risk, and I don't know how we categorize dangerousness yet. But when we have a system that allows somebody who seems kind of dangerous, right? Let's say at the first appearance there's video surveillance of somebody committing a violent act, right? When you look at Louisiana Code of Criminal Procedure 334, you're supposed to take into consideration the strength of the case. And let's say this person, that video is showing them shooting their gun. And we believe that at this point in time, this person might need to cool off and actually shouldn't be in the streets right now. If that person has access to $1 million, they're able to post their bail, right, and get out, does that keep us safe? In comparison to somebody who's charged with possession of heroin, a $2,500 bond that they cannot meet, they're going to sit in jail. So when I say money bail doesn't keep us safe, because I don't believe the keys to the jail should be the coins in your pocket. Right? We should be considering how can we be using this assessment of pretrial release to really do what pretrial is supposed to take into consideration. When we're releasing somebody, right, with pretrial services, we're talking about maximum release of people from jail if we can get maximum appearance in court as well as maximum safety in our city. And so when we have conversations about eliminating money bail, people often think, well, how could you eliminate money bail? And if you do, we're going to have an increase in crime, we're going to have an increase of muck around the city, and we actually have data that shows that that's just not true. Right? We look at Washington, D.C. In 2017, Washington, D.C. released 91% of the people that came through their court system. Right? 91% of the people that came through the court system were released without a financial bond. Of those 91% people that were released, I'm sorry, 94% were released. 91% of them appeared in court. So that tells us that we actually don't need money to have people appearing in court, right? We also know that only 12% of those individuals were rearrested for a new offense. Let's talk about Chicago, right? So in Chicago, 81% of the people were released without a financial bond. 88% of those people came back to court, and 90% of those people were never arrested for a new charge, right? So those are two examples. We can talk about Kentucky. We can talk about Mesa, Colorado. We can talk about Allegheny. We have examples of cities that are not using money bail to determine someone's release, and those people are still appearing to court, and they're not getting arrested on new charges. So that begs the question for us to consider, as New Orleanians, do we believe money bail is keeping us safe? Or is there an alternative that we can be pursuing as a city that really makes sense financially, but also is in line with best practices, demonstrating the fact that on par, when you compare appearance rates, where people that have bonded out compared to folks that did not have to pay any money, the appearance rates are on par. We know the demonstration is that you actually do not need money for people to show up to court. And in fact, when you're looking at the data from Washington, D.C., majority of the individuals that missed court did not miss it intentionally, or did not miss it because they were trying to skip out on court. There was some type of scheduling conflict, or couldn't get childcare, or couldn't get a ride, and in fact appeared later within 3 days. And so I love to have these conversations for us to think about. We've been using money bail for decades, right? We have been using money bail, and what we see is it's not necessarily always keeping dangerous people in jail. But what we do know is it's keeping poor people in jail. On any given night in Orleans Parish, 30% of the people are there not because they're dangerous, not because they have a probation hold, not because they've been sentenced, simply because they don't have the money to put up to bond out and fight the case from the street. But what happens when they do fight the case from the street? We've seen cases get dismissed. We've seen better plea deals. We've seen people actually knuckle up and go to trial. And I share this perspective with you as somebody who knuckled up and went to trial as a public defender for many people for 5 years here at Orleans Parish. When the topic of this conversation is black people stuck in jail. Right, before Hurricane Katrina, the average monthly jail population was 6,500 people, right? The average monthly jail population in January 2019 was 1,200 people, right? That's a huge reduction, and that's my time. That's a huge reduction, right? Demonstrating that this size of a city does not need that size of a jail. And when we look at the decline of our jail population, we have not seen an increase in crime. And so we need to be thinking about, are those two really correlated? And also understanding that even though we have 1,200 people on a monthly average in jail, we're still 1.3 times higher than national averages, so we still have room to go.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. Appreciate several things about that, but especially for you keeping track of your own time. That's very, very much appreciated. So, but Mr. Snowden, just to make clear, you are an advocate to us doing away with the money bail system. Okay, all right. How many of you in this room will be also advocates of that? Just raise your hand. And you'll be advocates of getting rid, and on the panel too, getting rid of the money bail system. Ms. Eric, will you raise your hand? You just scratched your head in the face. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right, but just to clarify too, for you, the problem is not with the bail system, it's with the Orleans criminal justice system. Is that correct? What you were saying? Okay. All right. Okay. Let's move on. And the reason why Sonny is up there, because Sonny has a personal experience with bail. But Sonny, what we're going to do is allow you to ask the first question to these folks up here and recommend what you think may be some good reform that needs to be done. So go ahead, please, sir. And what will be your question to these panelists?
All right. Well, I kind of want to lead into my question with a comment because, basically what I heard today kind of clarified what I lived and what I kind of experienced.
So you got about 4 more minutes.
It's that there was a racket of human trafficking, and they're actually really they're preying on a certain demographic of African American males between the ages of 13 to 27, and they target these young men through general description in the media, and they use this as an opportunity to just do mass incarcerations. You know, they do weekly sweeps and checkpoints to kind of catch people, and it's been really kind of evident within this conversation. So I want to really ask, what other means of release besides bail is there? I mean, Mr. Sonny did, show the accurate amount of reduction in crime, and it shows that there are people that don't really need money to own up to their crimes. But it is that when people do pay their fine, they don't go to court. You know, a lot of times they use that as a scapegoat and means of not dealing with the things that they have done. So it's like, as a bail bondsman, you know, and dealing with the issue of the justice, crooked justice system that you know is affecting your community. What do you do, or what do you want to do to dismantle what you have been working to build?
Okay, this is what I feel needs to be done. I don't think money bail should be done away with. It needs to be monitored. And what I mean by monitored is this here. If you're a convicted felon and you got caught with a firearm, you should get charged accordingly. Not because I know Judge Doley and I'm good friends with Judge Doley, and my son he just got caught and his bond was $40,000, and because I shook his hand and ate with him a couple of times, now my son's bond is only $1,000. All right? Once again, I'm going to say this here. I ain't going to say everybody. Certain people are looking at the bail companies as the ones who are doing the injustice. We're not doing the injustice. For the simple reason is, if you have a $10,000 bond, guess what? You take away bail bondsmen, now your family have to go to Orleans Parish Prison and pay $10,000 cash, or you stay in jail. So hold on, listen to me. Let me finish this here. Or you stay in jail. Or you come to me and you pay $1,247 and you get out of jail. So the thing is this here. Which way is more feasible for your family? The $10,000 cash that Orleans Parish Prison wants, or the $1,247 that I'm charging and only making $200? You understand what I'm saying? So if you do away with bail reform, if you do away with bonds or bail, guess what happens? Now you want to have more people in the system to where they're making more money now because you can't touch that $10,000.
Thank you for that. Listen, we have only one question up here, so I'll wait on that question for a moment. But this sounds very interesting. So, Veronica, let me ask you, and answer that question. What monitoring work? Instead of money bail, maybe we'll continue on with money bail, but have the bail bondsman monitored. Well, what do you think of that?
I gotta admit, I'm a proponent of getting rid of money bail. I agree with Will that the money, the financial hook, is not what is keeping us safe. Because you see people who are able to pay, that are considered the highest risk defendants, they're able to pay their way out. I mean, look at Telly Hanks. Okay, but then you look at the people who were arrested on it could be loitering, or it could be a traffic violation, and they might stay for 6 months because they can't buy their way out. And so the monitoring, that sounds great to me. To answer Sonny's question, I think that we need to, as a community and as a society, to look at the elephants in the room. Why is the defendant not showing up to court? Mental health issues? Family support? Do they need child support? Do they need child care? Are they trying to get to their job? Do they need job education? Do they need to finish their GED? There have been certain programs of monitoring, like I'll send you a text message. Those have been proven to be very successful. Of course, you're assuming that the person has a cell phone, or the program is resourced enough where they could purchase the phone for that individual, which we don't see necessarily in the foreseeable future in Orleans Parish. But we got to look at the reasons why the defendant is not coming to court. Are they coming to court doing everything that they're being asked to do, but their drug test every time, their fines and fees are increased every time, or their bail is increased every time, and it's just stacking against them time and time again? We need to get to the source.
Thank you. Mr. Snowden.
Same question.
Yes.
So,
in particular, respond to what Mr. Brown said regarding the burden on the family.
yeah. So when I talk about eliminating money bail, I'm not talking about just eliminating accessing the resources, the service that a bondsman provides. What I'm saying is the decision is either we release this person or we don't. And in fact, when we look at the example of, this person would have to pay a $10,000 cash bond because a bail bondsman doesn't exist, that's not what I'm talking about. And as the time is right now, when we have money bail, I do agree. Mr. Brown provides a service, and other bondsmen provide a service for people to get out of jail. Right? My issue is not with the bondsman for the service that they are providing, but the mechanism that we have created within our criminal legal system to determine who is worthy of being released and who isn't. And that shouldn't rest on your financial status. When we think about, is there more supervision or is there more conditions that we should be placing on people, just my familiarity with some of the research, we don't need all these supervised conditions like it's probation to ensure somebody gets to court. I will say the reason why Washington, D.C. is so successful with pretrial release, having released 94% of the people, is because their pretrial service has a budget out of this world. Right? So they are providing those services. They are connecting people with transportation. They are giving them those text message reminders. And so if we are going to be eliminating money bail, we also don't need to be setting ourselves up for failure. We need to be making sure that we have a pretrial services program that's going to assist these individuals to make sure they're showing up to court, but also provides contact with them to make sure they're not going to be getting rearrested on new offenses.
Yes, hold on for a minute. Well, real quickly, someone wants to know the difference between Vera National and Vera Local. Can you just explain that real quick? Then we'll move on to Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
And then I have another question after that.
Yeah, so Vera New Orleans is part of Vera National. So Vera New Orleans opened up in 2008. We first came to the city in 2006, opened up an office here. The main difference is we are focused and dedicated to work in New Orleans, where Vera National has worked in about 40 states, with a lot of people working remotely. Our three main projects are bail fines, reforming bail fines and fees, reducing the jail population, and then working with the police department for a program called Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion to equip officers to, instead of taking people to jail, get them connected with resources to address mental health, substance use, trauma, homelessness, things like that.
Thank you so much. Mr. Brown. Sure? Yeah. Okay. Next question.
I have a question from Apple. Do public defenders work with the DA?
Yeah. So when we say do we work with the DA, right? I had relationships with the DAs to try to get whatever my client wanted. So if my client wanted to go to trial, I had to work with the DA, let them know that that's what we were doing. My client wanted a plea deal, I had to let the DA know that that's what we were trying to do. Oftentimes, people would think that we're working with the DA to resolve the case. I'll tell you, I was one of those public defenders that honestly wanted to take everything to trial because I was frustrated with how the system was set up. Not all my clients wanted to go to trial, right? Because for some individuals, you're facing serious time if you were to lose at trial, regardless of your innocence or guilt, right? So do public defenders work with the DA In the same way that they work with the sheriff that's in that courtroom, in the same way that they have to work with the judge that's in the courtroom, the public defender is part of that courtroom work group. So we all do have to work together. But I will tell you, I wasn't one of those public defenders that would be getting drinks with DAs, that would be invited to my birthday party. That just wasn't how I got down.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, please ask.
All right. I have one quick question I need you to answer. You said that you wasn't one of the ones that worked trial. When you go to trial, who pays for the trial? The public, correct? Okay, so their tax dollars are going towards the trial, correct? Their tax dollars, because the people's tax dollars pay for the trial, correct? Okay. By you being a public defender, you want to take everything to trial for your clients, no matter if you was innocent or guilty, correct? Which means now you're burning more tax dollars, okay? Right? All right. I just wanted to make sure I understood. Okay.
So, just to clarify, right? So if I had somebody charged with armed robbery, right, and it wasn't armed robbery, say it was simple robbery, and they wouldn't want to offer simple robbery, we would go to trial, right? He'd be guilty of simple robbery, but I would go to trial to make sure that the appropriate charge is being assigned to the person that I was representing. So when we think about using tax dollars, I would much rather use tax dollars to go to trial to represent somebody, because we have a system where 85% of the people that come through Tulane and Broad cannot afford their attorney, right? And so the same tax dollars that I might be using as a public defender to exercise a constitutional right are the same tax dollars that a person who is wealthy that wants to go to trial would be spending as well. It's important to know that when we look at the marginal cost of trials, that's nothing in comparison to the marginal cost that we have of people being stuck in jail, right? Or the marginal cost that we have of people being sent to prison. We know that we're looking at the people in the jail and kind of bringing it back to the focus of the conversation, which is bail, which is keeping people in jail. It costs $198 a day for someone to be in jail, right? The jail has to operate like a hotel, whether or not those beds are filled or not. Marginal cost is about $33 a day. So as a public defender, it was my duty to make sure the people that I represented who were poor, right, we start there. I don't start with them being innocent or guilty. I start with them being poor to represent their desires. If they were guilty and they wanted to go to trial, that was their right.
Got another question here.
This one is for Mr. Snowden. It says, how will we eliminate money bill? Through legislation or educating judges?
So it's a combination. So right now, there are certain offenses in the Code of Criminal Procedure that do not allow for somebody just to be released without any bail amounts at all. So there's a term, it's called release on your own recognizance. Essentially what that means, the person can be released pretty much on their own signature, giving their word that they will come back to court. 14:2 defines all the crimes of violence, and combination with crimes of violence as well as charges that are like possession with intent to distribute prohibit recognizance bonds, meaning that person cannot just be released. So the way that we would eliminate money bail in New Orleans is we could follow some of the recommendations of the public safety assessment tool, which is advising the judges, again, I'm putting these air quotes, on an individual's risk or their dangerousness based on their criminal history in comparison to others. So the way that we could eliminate money bail starting out would have to be locally, right? It would have to be City Council and the Mayor's office working within the Code of Criminal Procedure that would allow a nominal bail such as $1 to be within the confines of the statute, to not require that bond be posted on certain offenses, but then also understanding we're talking about there is a category of offenses with people with a certain violent criminal history where they would not be eligible for a bond, they would simply be remanded. So the way that it would happen, as an example, in New Orleans would be within just the city, and then hopefully we could be using New Orleans as an example to have conversations and using data to demonstrate its potential effectiveness with the state legislation. Oh, and I'm sorry, just to add, Vera New Orleans is coming out with a report in June of this year laying the blueprint for this exact model, and I'll make sure that you all are made aware when it's published.
Okay, one more question. So with bail reform, they released them on ROR, all right, saying that I'm coming back to court. All right. If that person don't show up to court, a warrant is issued, right? Okay, so now it goes back to the public tax dollar because the police have to find them, correct? Okay? Right. So now the people, the tax dollar, is paying once again for this person to get apprehended. Correct? All right. The reason I'm asking that question is this here. Us as bail sponsormen, when we sign that check over to New Orleans Parish Prison, if that person misses court, guess who pays for that? Not you all. We do. That come out of our pocket. The taxpayers do not pay $1 for me to go find the person that I signed out in jail. So once again, and I'm going to cut it short, listen to what's going on. You're trying to stop the money bail, but then everything is falling on the taxpayers. Which means, what happens? Now the tax dollar goes up. Right? But bail sponsorsmen, they don't pay us to go find nobody. Because when we sign that check, basically we are taking full responsibility and full control of that person. Now, with my company, you know what I do? I call a person 2 days before it's time to go to court and a day before it's time to go to court. Just to remind them. For the simple fact is, the way the judicial system is set up, you go to jail today, you get a court date 3 months from now. Who's going to remember that if you don't put it on your icebox? Who's going to remember that if you don't put it in your phone? Who's
Has a response. Ms. Brown first, and then back to you. Well, our Sonny, did you too?
Yeah.
Okay, first Veronica first.
I just want to respectfully kind of turn this on a head. So sometimes, I'm sure that you guys are all familiar with the Public Defender's Office being called a user-paid system. And I don't like that term because, I mean, who chooses to use the criminal justice system? But I've heard the argument about taxpayers paying for government, but as an organization that calls for the transparency and accountability of government, I still believe that monitoring belongs on the shoulders of public officials as opposed to private contractors, because the poor pay their taxes as well. So not only are they paying for their bail, but they are also paying their taxes. So they're getting twice gouged.
Sonny?
And to kind of pick up Mr. Brown, it was back in 2010 when I was incarcerated for 18 months. And while I was incarcerated, I organized inmates to draw editorial cartoons. I drew about 8 of them. And these editorial cartoons were used to help form the consent decree. There were images of how we were housed as inmates inside of HOD and now detention and detention. So as a result of the consent decree, they had issued a federal committee called the Police Monitors Committee to monitor the sheriff and police department. You know, and that's exactly my crime was about. Exactly. And so that's, look, and I'm glad that you said that. That's why I asked that question in the beginning. We must definitely gonna win. Yeah.
Grab the mic. Your voice is louder than that.
I'm going to say this and I'm going to be quiet, all right? I'm 40 years old. Don't mind the tattoos. That was my younger days. Like I said, that's the area I come up in, okay? But I'm going to say this here. If you look at New Orleans would be a better place. All right? And I'm going to get off subject, but I'm going to show y'all what I'm talking about. If you get another water board company down here, guess what? Your water bill is going to drop because it's competitive. If you get another energy company down here, your energy is going to drop. Why? Because it's competitive, right? But watch this. You can't do it at Orleans Parish Prison because it's not being monitored. So 40 people got their hand in the pot. My thing is, how can you decrease the percentage of bails in New Orleans, but you still get your 3%?
Thank you. Mr. Sonny, do you have a question real quick? We got 3 more questions up here.
No, I didn't. I just...
Comment? No.
No, it's fine.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Brown, do 3 are for you. It asks, does Orleans Parish require bond agents to pay bond forfeiture when defending Mrs. Trial/court?
Yes. Oh, that's, who asked that question? Edward? Who asked that? Thank you for asking that question. And I'm going to tell you why I say thank you. I said everything good about the bond part, but that, all right? This is what happens. If I bond you out on a $10,000 bond, right? The city of New Orleans, if you miss court, give me 60 days to fine you. Now, mind you, you only paid me $1,247 on that $10,000 bond. But on that 61st day, if I don't turn that person in, guess what? I have to cut a check for $10,000.
My question was, have you though?
I have. And guess what? I have a check that I actually have to cut for St. Matter of fact, back in this parish tomorrow morning for $5,500. And guess what? You do the math. $5,500 at 10% is only $550. So I lost almost $4,800 and something on somebody I didn't know, because I only had 60 days to turn that person in.
So if I may add the final part of the question, I appreciate how you talk about the differences in the parish policies.
Yes, sir.
And I work with people that have looked at the Orleans Parish budget and can't find where those forfeitures are going to. They don't amount to very much. And I'm wondering if there's a disparity in which bond agents they actually charge those forfeitures, and if there's different policy outside of this parish.
I'm going to tell you where it goes at. Listen to me. Do your research. I'm on camera. You might find it somewhere later on down the line, and nobody knows why I'm down the line stinking somewhere. But listen to me and hear me out. Everybody, I can't say it no purer than this. Everybody in Orleans Parish, from the jail to energy to Sewage and Water Board to Cox Cable, everybody that's on your city board council, some of them have their hands in the pot. And that's why I just said, they told us we could charge 13%. But now we have to pay a percentage back on every bond that we did from 2005. Right? Another thing, I'm going to say this and I'm gone. Do your research. If they take their hands out the pot and make it competitive, you won't see that. Just like you said with Washington, D.C. You can't compare Washington to New Orleans, where the crime is higher, to where the poverty level is higher, to where the minimum wages is lower than Washington, D.C. You can't compare D.C. to New Orleans.
Mr. Brown, we're going to leave it right there, because that's I'm sure Mrs. Golden would like to pick up on that. Can we compare D.C. to New Orleans and do the same thing? Is that what you're saying?
We can. So when we think about this misinformation that we have different types of criminals in New Orleans than we do, say, in Cook County or Chicago, or we do in Washington, D.C., like, we can have opinions about this as people who live in New Orleans, who have experienced New Orleans, and understand the uniqueness of New Orleans. But we also have to understand that people research this issue, people produce data around this phenomenon, and the data and research demonstrates that a New Orleans defendant would have similar outcomes and provide the same opportunities and resources as somebody that gets released in Chicago, as somebody that gets released in Washington, D.C., or Allegheny, or whatever it might be. Because the key is, money is not the carrot that is getting people to court, right? And that doesn't matter if you're a New Orleanian, if you're a Chicagoan, if you're somebody that's in Washington, D.C. We also know that people are appearing to court without money actually being the tool that is going to be used. So when we have these comparisons, we should have our opinions about how we believe New Orleanians are different, but let's take a step back, right? We've been having this money bail system for decades, right? We as a society are addicted to this idea that locking people up actually keeps us safer, when we know that's simply not true. Louisiana has been the prison capital of the world for how long? Right? Have we been the safest state in the country? We haven't. So we need to really re-examine this idea that locking people up is going to keep us safer. And when we have conversations when Mr. Brown was sharing this person's charged with felon possession of a firearm, they deserve a $10,000 bond. Well, you said they deserve whatever they should be charged with. They shouldn't receive favors of like getting a reduced $1,000 bond.
I said that if a convicted felon with a firearm, everyone should have the same amount of bond. So if I got charged convicted with a firearm and my bond is $25,000, and he got charged with a convicted felon with a firearm, just because his daddy knew the judge, his guidance should be $1,000. That's what I see.
You're saying it should be 25. You're saying it should be $25,000.
It shouldn't be no fair. If I got a $5,000 bond on, he should get a $5,000 bond. She should get a $5,000. Everybody else should get a $5,000.
And that's
It's not
unconstitutional.
monitored, so that favoritism is so how do we eliminate that?
Can I just put a pin in that? That's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional to say that Mr. Brown being charged with throwing a firearm deserves a $5,000 bond, and Mr. So-and-so, who's a billionaire, also deserves a $10,000 bond. Bond does not get assigned based on the charge. So we cannot be saying, okay, you only make $100,000 a year, so we're going to charge you with $5,000. So he can pay that. Let's say you make $200,000, you can pay that. Let's say you only make $200 a year. She can't pay a $5,000 bond. She can't. So that's why we cannot have the same bond for every charge. You have to take into consideration. You have to take.
So I think what he said, Mr. Brown. Right.
What I'm saying is this here. At the end result, I got charged with a convicted felon with a firearm. She got charged with a convicted felon of a firearm. He got charged with a convicted felon of a firearm, which means all of us been to jail already. So why is my bond $5,000 and just because she only makes $200 a year, why her bond should be lower when she been to jail already too? Because guess what? The main word is convicted felon with a firearm. All three of us been convicted.
It's called the presumption of innocence, right? So we cannot just say because you've been charged with a crime, you deserve this charge, right? We look at Louisiana Code of Criminal Procedure 334. You have to take 7 things into consideration. One of the things you have to take into consideration is the strength of the case. If Mr. Brown, if you're charged with felon with a firearm and it's an absolutely bogus case, you shouldn't have a $10,000 bond. Maybe you should be released. They're not going to release you because of the statute. So maybe they say, listen, since this case is not that strong against you, and we have a sniff that this is a bunk case, we want to send a $1,000 bond. Where if Sonny gets charged with felon with a firearm and it's on video and the strength of the case is very, very high, they are going to increase that amount. What I'm saying is we cannot, according to Louisiana and the United States Constitution, associate bond based on charge. It has to be based on the individual. And we have to get beyond this idea that we think we are using bail to punish people. This is a pre-trial phase. This person has not been convicted. This person has not been officially charged with a crime. Either you have a bill of information or an indictment. This person hasn't been charged by the DA yet. And you're trying to keep them in jail where they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their kids, they're going to lose their housing. And we're talking about pre-trial release. We won't be able to keep that stuff. And if we get so, just tied to this idea that money is the thing that we should be considering who belongs back on our street, who belongs back with their families. Poor people are going to be stuck in jail. Poor black folks are going to be stuck in jail. And we know right now of the 1,100 people that are in Orleans Parish Prison, right now 80% of them are black. Right? We know people are there because they are poor. And we have to just think about how we can do this differently because it has not been working.
All right, very good. Thank you. We got 3 questions. Y'all drink some water. We're going to get to these 3 questions, okay?
Wait, order. Of the 1,200 persons in jail waiting for trial, got released ROR, how many people would be in jail? Of the 1,200 persons in jail waiting for trial, got released ROR, how many people would be in jail?
So if the question is, if the eligible people in jail got RORs, how would that reduce the population? I'm sorry. Yeah.
You say the jail population is 1,200. If we went to a system like DC, what percentage of that 1,200 would be in jail?
Gotcha. So I believe, and we've run numbers, I don't know them exactly, but if we were to have a system that we would probably have a reduction in the jail population of around 300 less people. So the jail population would still be high 800s, right? So the people are still going to be in jail. It's important to understand when we're talking about eliminating money bail, we're not saying just open the door, let everybody go, right? So if we were to have a system similar to DC, where they're looking at folks with a violent history and are charged with violent offenses, and we have a model that we have been creating a blueprint for New Orleans, if we were to go forward with the model that Vera New Orleans is coming out with to eliminate money bail, we would have about, I think, around 300 fewer people in the jail right now, so we would still be around 900 folks, which would be on par with national averages. So that doesn't mean we're going to have an empty jail. We're still going to have at least around 900 folks there.
Ms. Vivian would love to ask her question to you all. Ms. Vivian?
Okay, so in retrospect to what you said, I had two friends who went through the same scenario, and one man was Caucasian and one man was African American, and they got different charges for the same occurrence. And the Caucasian man just got community service. The African American man got charged with felony. And it took him years to clear everything up. And I went with him to his court hearings, and I paid for some of his fees so that he wouldn't go to jail. And I know it was really difficult for him, and him was where he was really embarrassed because I was giving him money because he felt angry because he worked every day and he didn't have the time, to go to all the court hearings, to go do all the drug tests, sometimes to pay for all the different classes they had to take on different things. The thing about it was the Caucasian man that had the two scales. The cops threw it on my other friend and charged it like he was distributing marijuana when he wasn't. He simply had $20 worth of weed on him that cost him years of his life. And he wasn't able to get a good job. He wasn't able to survive on it.
Ms. Vivian, real quick, I need you to answer a question.
Well, so the question is, you say that there shouldn't be bonds based on a charge. I agree with that because it's not fair. They do really judge you on the color of your skin.
So I think we all agree about the injustice of our criminal justice system, and that's a prime example of it. I'm sorry that you're starting to experience that. We are working on reforming the space of fines and fees as well, which are often at the tail end of the case, so people don't pay fines and fees. That's separate from the bond payment. The court's trying to collect that. People don't pay their fines and fees, and they're getting worse and worse.
But we did just pass a law that if we bind a person out, as long as they're paying fines and fees, we are still responsible. Which means they hold us accountable until they finish paying their fines.
Which means they hold us accountable until they finish paying their fines and fees. That was a law that just passed. All right? And I do understand what you're saying, because I'm going to throw this out and I'm going to leave it alone. Let's rewind the tape back to the incident on Canal Street when the guy ran into the crowd. All right? You go back to when he did that, his fine was $100,000. But just a couple of months ago on Esplanade, the same thing happened with fewer people. And his fine is $500,000. Do your research on it. You're right. It goes by the color of your skin.
Thank you. This next question states, why is the lawsuit against Judge Cantrell, and what relation is he to the mayor?
So the lawsuit against Magistrate Judge Cantrell is currently looking at two things. The first thing is his practices. So at the time, they're looking at his practices of not taking into consideration a person's ability to pay. So really asking somebody, let's say I'm in front of the judge, and he's not asking my lawyer, do I have a job? How much do I make? Am I actually able to afford a particular bond amount, whatever he's setting it at? He wasn't, according to the lawsuit, he wasn't doing that type of consideration or determination of a person's ability to pay. So the first issue in the lawsuit was whether or not Judge Cantrell was actually taking into consideration a person's ability to pay. The second issue in the lawsuit was determining the constitutionality of the money scheme that is associated with bail as it relates to the judges actually getting 1.8% of that 3% fee that Mr. Brown was talking about. Like that's a constitutional financial conflict of interest. Like you can't be determining the size of the pie knowing that you're going to get a cut of that pie. So the lawsuit is about two things. One, it's raising the constitutionality of not taking into consideration a person's ability to pay. And then two, the financial conflict of interest of setting an amount and actually getting a percentage of that amount back. And then he is Mayor Cantrell's father-in-law.
Thank you. This next one states for Mr. Brown. The proof is that in the other places that people show up in court on their own. We need to monitor our judges and public officials, for example, the dissent decree.
I see you are correct. The thing is, with New Orleans and our population, once again, it goes back to what I said earlier. You look at Washington minimum wage, and you look at New Orleans minimum wage. You look at Washington costs of living, and you look at New Orleans cost of living. A one-bedroom house in New Orleans is about $1,000 a month. If you're working $7.50 an hour, how can you pay that if you don't do no illegal activity?
I'm going to let Veronica respond to that question. Do you have any response to that monitoring?
Monitoring starts from the community. When I was talking about taxes being paid, we all share them. We all share that responsibility equally. We are members of the community and society, and we are responsible for raising our black children and any other race the same so that they have the same opportunities. If we're talking about monitoring, then we should talk about who is watching our government officials. My position right before this one was with the City of New Orleans Office of the Independent Police Monitor, where we monitor the NOPD consent decree. This is important. That it's wonderful that all of you are getting educated tonight and are participating tonight, but continue that, please, because it starts with you.
Mr. Snowden, what can Justice and beyond do to pressure the mayor, council, legislature, and judges to stop money bail?
I think it starts with learning in a very deep way the ins and outs of this issue, right? And as an example of the conversation amongst the panelists, like this is something that we all care about, right? And I want to be clear, like I'm not up here trying to put bondsmen out of business because I know bondsmen, I know how they provide for their families, I know how they are positioning themselves to provide a service for folks that are coming into contact with the system, and they want those folks home as well. I agree with bondsmen that we need to be getting people out of the jail, right? They have a model of being able to put up the money by signing the promissory note for those people to come home. I believe that money should not be in the calculation at all. When we think about how we can influence state legislators, when we think about how we can influence city council or the mayor's office, first we have to be in a space of being informed about this issue, and then attending and asking questions at the Criminal Justice Committee meetings for the City Council. When the mayor has her listening sessions, asking those questions. When your district attorneys are running for election in 2020, asking questions, right? When judges are running for election in 2020, asking those questions, right? Because we as a community can indicate what is important to us through the questions that we're asking, and if that person wants to earn our vote, they have to be able to demonstrate where they are, what policies they have, and the issues that we think are important. So, eliminating money bail is a controversial topic because when we think about eliminating money bail, people's natural response is that we're letting all the people out of the jail and the city is going to be running amok and high crime is going to take over. And that's simply not the case, right? We need to have an informed position and understanding about how money bail works in Orleans Parish, because it does work different elsewhere, how it does or does not keep us safe, and how we think we could be investing the savings that we are experiencing from not locking up people unnecessarily and investing those elsewhere. We know that criminal justice reform actually starts in the classroom with our kids. And when we have failings in our education system, when we have failings in our employment opportunities, when we have failings in people being able to support their families, naturally they will have to do what they have to do to survive. And sometimes that involves coming into contact with the criminal justice system. But it is my job as a director of the Vera New Orleans office to make sure we all understand how money bail isn't the best way that we could be doing pretrial release. Money bail isn't the best way that we can be considering how to keep us safe. And to understand that when we're talking about bail, what we're talking about is this person being able to fight the case from the street or not. They have not been adjudicated guilty. They have not pled guilty. They have not been found guilty. This is still at the very, very front end of the system when they're having this journey through the criminal justice system, and it's important to understand that because they will have their day in court, either when they plead guilty or when they have a motion hearing or when they're actually going to trial to contest innocence or guilt. We're only talking about pretrial release, and that person could be innocent. We have to keep in mind that if the system doesn't work for the innocent folks, how will it work for the guilty? And right now, money bail is not keeping us safe the way it's designed in New Orleans.
All right. We're going to finish up our conversation tonight with just some closing remarks by each of you. Ladies first, Ms. Veronica, would you just give us 2 minutes of closing remarks, and then we're going to close.
So I didn't want to steer the conversation away from money bail because that was really important, but I do want to go back to the question that was really poignant in my mind of do public defenders work with district attorneys? Mainly because your court watchers see all of that. We see the intersection of all of these offices, and I wholeheartedly agree with a lot of what Eric is saying. It's not, the criminal justice system is broken in several ways. And what we try to do is act as the fly on the wall and see what can be changed. It could be a simple tweak. I'll give you an example, like when the public defender is not notified of the date of arraignment. Okay, that's a very simple thing of when the defendant is required to appear in court and yet their counsel isn't even notified. It's an inefficiency like the clerks of court office doesn't have email. I mean, it's 2019. So there are several little things that we can see as court watchers, and we would be honored to have you carry one of our yellow clipboards and carry one of our yellow ID tags. Our volunteer director, Jesse Manley, is sitting in the back right there and is happy to have you come and help us monitor.
Thank you so much, Ron. All right, next. Yeah, that's right.
All right, I'm going to say this here and I'm going to close out. Hold on, I got to copy off my man right here with the stopwatch. Hold it up. All right, I'm going to say this. I have a son that's been incarcerated since 16. All right? And when he got on the stand, well, when the victim, the wife, got on the stand, she told the judge he didn't do it. He was on a conduct. And they still gave my son 7 years without a bond. And guess what? To this day, every time I see that lady, she said, Mr. Brown, I am so sorry that your son got convicted on something he didn't do. And the reason I say that is because of this. The public defenders, they work together, because that's how my son got jammed up. Because guess what? His court-appointed lawyer worked with the public defender and said, you know what? Instead of giving him 199 years, we're going to give him 7. They didn't discuss that with my son at 16 years old. They just got him to sign a paper. No bond. Never discussed no time with him. He just got him to sign a paper. That's one of my main reasons I got into bail. To help people, not to hurt nobody. And like I said, every aspect I gave y'all is not to hurt you, it's to help you. If everybody get their hands out of the pot in Orleans Parish Prison, no matter what it is, water, lights, whatever, Orleans will be a better place. Point blank, period. I got into the business, like I said, to help. And if I can help anybody, I will. Point blank, period. I have 8 kids that I have to provide for, and like I said, I come from the streets of the hard knock life. That lady right there can tell you. That's why I say, don't let the tattoos fool you. That's back in the day. Well educated. Well educated. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you so much. Mr. Strong.
And, this is a pleasure being here. And this kind of reminds me that, when I was incarcerated and when I did those editorial cartoons, I had no idea that, it was to bring weight, to bring an awareness, bring weight to the consent decree and what that, brought about the change of monitoring the judicial system of New Orleans. And so to hear that again posed as a solution, to deal with really a century-old issue of racial profile in New Orleans, it is really a blessing to him, because I know that we can move steps forward from this. Raising the awareness of an issue can get everyone to address the issue firmly. So now that we know, okay, it's not the bail bondsman, but it's actually the crooked racketeering of the system, of itself, that needs to be revised, we dismantle that and rebuild. That's what we can focus on, and we can form direct initiatives to do that. That's all I got to say.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Strong. Mr. Strong.
Yeah, I want to thank Justice Beyond for having me. I want to thank Veronica, Mr. Brown, and Sonny for having this conversation. I really do enjoy being able to talk these things out, because we are in a space of learning, right? And I'm not 100% right. Sonny's not 100% right. Mr. Brown's not 100% right. Ms. Veronica's not 100% right. But we as a community have to be committed to learning. And being in this space and being able to respectfully disagree, right? We're going to still have love for each other, because we know our justice system is not working. And we all understand that there's no silver bullet to justice reform. That in fact it is a collaborative process of like-minded individuals that can respectfully disagree on certain things and agree on others. Right? As a public defender, am I going to defend all public defenders? No. I can talk about how I did my job. Just how Mr. Brown cannot defend all the bail bondsmen. Mr. Brown's going to do his job. Right? But as we zoom out, we understand, as everybody is saying, our system needs a lot of work. Right? And so when we think about how can we dismantle the bricks of the system, it has to be brick by brick with this conversation, coming from an informed space, reading, having conversations, asking questions. And this is a great example of that. And I want to thank all of you for just enjoying this conversation, asking your questions. And I want to share with you that Vera New Orleans will be putting out his blueprint on how we think we can be weaning ourselves off this idea of money bail with a report called Paid in Full, which will come out in June. The reason why it's called Paid in Full is because we issued a report in 2017 called Past Due, which really looked at the money that's being baked into the system on bail and fines and fees. And after the lawsuits that came last year, the court has been paid in full regarding the funding that was taken away from them from these lawsuits. And now we think we're in a prime moment to have real reform and really redefine what we think justice looks like at Tulane Brown.
Very good. Listen, can I understand 5 more minutes? Give me 5 more minutes. We got one question for all of us together, because we are fighting for justice on one accord, trying to change the injustice going on in this city. Especially for our people of color, but for poor people in general, but especially for poor people of color. We need to decide in this room what our next action needs to be. What we need to do as a community working in solidarity and unity. What do we want our next action to be at this forum for justice and beyond? Any suggestions? Your opportunity to speak up. Reverend Barnwell.
Yeah, Mr. Snowden. Have you written articles called The Lands? I think when this report comes out, Justice and Beyond you can do the writing, but we can co-sponsor that. A lot of thoughtful people read The Lands. And Sonny's written one of them, and you can write 1,500 to 2,000 words, and I'll be glad, I know the director of that, and I'll be glad to help with that. But see, if Justice and Beyond and Vera put this together, then a lot of people will learn about that June report.
Action for the right of the land.
In response to your question, Reverend, I feel as if being that marijuana was once considered a felony, where now it's a misdemeanor. Yet some people have still had it on their record as a felony, which kind of hindered a lot of progression in their life, as well as like the issue of doing drug tests without having an actual drug charge. So these are some issues that we kind of can address. Also, the legalization of marijuana that kind of decriminalize it, and it would really change a lot of incarceration of black people. I feel. So if we address the marijuana issue, that would be a step forward.
Okay. Address the marijuana issue. Get an article written by the man, by Mr. Snowden. What else? Further action. Respect.
Good evening. I think we should meet with Vera, and whatever we can decide, if they can decide, we can all get together on, we do that. I think I sure would like to see the bail bond system done away with, because only people like what we got.
All right. I also think that at the end, too, we need to expose some of these dirty billboxes, too. We thank Mr. Brown for being a bright one, very much so, but we want to expose these other ones that are not. Action.
I went to a marijuana meeting about 2 or 3 weeks ago at Cafe Istanbul, and we were talking about decriminalization, because most of the people that are getting locked up are 16 to 25-year-old black men.
Okay.
And there was some people in legislation pushing towards making it fair because wasn't that they're talking about how it helps with autism, postpartum depression, fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, and I think it will play a big factor of having less, I guess, unjust cases.
So you're saying you think we should stand behind the legalization of medical marijuana?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay. Gentlemen, further action.
I think the best way to help our communities and reach back to the younger people who share with how important it is not to get in trouble, so you wouldn't have to go to jail. The people that stuck in jail, let's all agree they had chance after chance. That's why they back in jail.
All right, now I want to say one thing to respond to my gentleman's question. What is respond? We should, yes, we should do away with bail reform. That's what you said, correct? With the bail system, correct? Okay. Now, what happens is this here. You can do away with us because, like you said, us is the ones in there. All right, but it goes back to what I said on paperwork. If your son go to jail, can you afford to pay New Orleans Parish Prison $10,000?